The blank spot should not have existed. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Mapping Authority had charted the stars. Every nebula, every inhabited world, every trade route, every dangerous anomaly. The GMA's archives contained the accumulated knowledge of thousands of civilizations. They had mapped 97.3% of the known galaxy. And yet, one region remained empty, a scar across the star charts. A 12,000 light-year stretch marked with only 2 words: Restricted Zone Human Territorial Space. Senior cartographer HFY stood before the massive projection display, arms folded tightly across his chest. The blank region glowed silently before him, mocking him, defying him. 17 expeditions, 17 failures. No explanation, no answers, only silence. And Zaith hated unanswered questions. Director. His voice echoed through the chamber. I found 17 separate mission records involving exploratory vessels that approached human territory during the last 50 cycles. Director Oren slowly turned. The elderly Valyrian looked ancient even by his species standards. 3 hearts pulsed visibly beneath his translucent skin. His eyes narrowed. And none returned with complete data. The room grew quiet. Zaith continued. Several vessels vanished entirely. A flick of his wrist brought new files onto the display. Others returned with corrupted navigation systems. Another gesture. 3 crews suffered severe psychological trauma. Even now, their reports remained classified. Director Oren's skin darkened to a deep blue. Irritation. A warning. The humans maintain territorial sovereignty. His voice was cold. We respect their boundaries. Zaith refused to back down. That is not GMA protocol. He pointed at the projection. The Duraxians allowed limited mapping, despite religious objections. Another gesture. The Halton Collective demanded oversight, but still cooperated. He looked directly at the director. Only the humans refuse entirely. Silence. For several seconds, neither moved. Finally, Oren spoke. The Galactic Council granted humanity special exemptions. Why? No answer. Why are they different? The director turned away. This discussion is over. But for Zaith, it had only just begun. Hours later, he sat alone in his private research station. Unauthorized archives floated around him in holographic layers. Historical records. Exploration logs. Sensor data. Forgotten reports. The deeper he searched, the stranger things became. 3 centuries ago, human space had been ordinary. Exploration vessels moved freely through the region. Several worlds had already been cataloged, mining prospects identified, trade routes proposed. Then, something changed. Ships began reporting impossible phenomena. Navigation systems failed. Sensors malfunctioned. Entire crews described disturbing experiences they could barely explain. And shortly afterward, humanity appeared. A supposedly primitive species. A civilization that advanced from early spaceflight to regional superpower in less than a century. Impossible. Unless the official history was incomplete. You're obsessed. Zaith looked up. Lennar stood in the doorway. Her feathered crest rose slightly with concern. The director will eventually notice you're accessing restricted archives. Zaith ignored her warning. Instead, he projected an ancient sensor log. Look at this. Lennar stepped closer. The display showed bizarre energy readings, patterns that matched nothing in known astrophysics. Then another file appeared. Gravitational distortions. Space folded in ways it shouldn't. Physics bent. Reality itself seemed uncertain. Lennar frowned. Perhaps that's why the area is restricted. Natural anomalies? Possibly. Zaith shook his head. No. He enlarged another image. A human defense network. Thousands of installations. Monitoring stations. Detection arrays. Patrol routes. His eyes narrowed. They aren't protecting the galaxy from the anomalies. A pause. They're hiding something. Lennar studied the data, or protecting themselves from it. The possibility hung in the air. Equally disturbing, equally plausible. Zaith made his decision. I'm going in. 3 months later, the crew was assembled. Only the best. Krev Dorn. Propulsion genius. Capable of making a starship appear invisible to half the galaxy. Thea Sen. Anthropologist. Expert in emerging civilizations. Moravex. Former military operative. The kind of individual you wanted nearby when things went wrong. And Lennar. Because despite her objections, she refused to let Zaith do something this reckless alone. Their vessel, the Stellar Inquiry, departed under completely legitimate orders. Officially, they were surveying a remote star cluster. Unofficially, they were committing one of the largest violations of galactic law in recent history. The border appeared disappointingly normal. No giant warning beacons, no defensive fleets, no minefields. Just stars. Endless stars. Approaching human territorial boundary, Lennar's voice carried through the bridge. Passive sensors only, as agreed. The crew watched the view screen. Nothing happened. They crossed the border. Still nothing. The silence felt wrong. Moravex shifted uneasily. Either they're not watching, he paused, or they're watching so closely they don't need warnings. Nobody laughed. The first anomaly appeared 2 light-years inside human territory. Then another. Then dozens. Instruments flickered. Navigation systems drifted. Gravity fluctuated without explanation. Krev stared at his console. This isn't possible. What is it? The engineer swallowed. The ship thinks we're in 3 locations simultaneously. The bridge went silent. Can you compensate? Partially. His hands moved rapidly. But this isn't natural. A long pause. It's almost as if someone designed the distortions. The words sent chills through the crew. Designed. Not random. Not cosmic. Engineered. The deeper they traveled, the stranger things became. Human monitoring stations appeared throughout the region. Every single one carried the same unusual equipment. Not weapons. Not communication arrays. Something else. Thea analyzed the scans, then slowly looked up. They're measuring space-time stability. Nobody spoke. Even Moravex looked unsettled. Why would anyone need that many sensors monitoring reality itself? No one had an answer. By the 5th day, reality had begun misbehaving. Stars flickered out of existence, then returned. Chronometers drifted apart. 2 clocks sitting beside each other reported different times. Distances changed momentarily. The universe seemed uncertain of its own rules. And always, human stations watched, measured, recorded, prepared, as if they expected things to get worse. Then Lennar finally intercepted a transmission. The bridge fell silent as encrypted human communications scrolled across her display. Most of it remained unreadable, but several fragments emerged. Lennar's face lost all color. What is it? Zaith asked. She looked up slowly. Fear filled her eyes. Real fear, the kind that experienced explorers almost never showed. Then she read the translation aloud. Containment Grid 7 holding. The crew exchanged confused looks. Lennar continued. Reality breach activity increasing. No one moved. No one breathed. Then came the final line. The one that turned the bridge completely silent. If containment fails, initiate evacuation of all inhabited sectors within 12,000 light-years. For several seconds nobody spoke. Outside the viewport, the stars shone peacefully. Beautiful. Silent. Normal. And for the first time since entering human space, Zaith realized something terrifying. The humans were not hiding a secret from the galaxy. They were standing guard over it. Boundary integrity at 94%. Sector 12 shows thinning. Deploy Anchor Team Alpha. What are they anchoring? Morrow wondered aloud. They soon encountered their first human patrol vessel, a sleek craft that appeared suddenly from behind a small asteroid. The crew tensed, but the human ship merely adjusted course to maintain distance, making no hostile moves, yet clearly tracking them. They know we're here, Morrow stated flatly. Let's make contact, Zeeth decided. We came for answers. Direct inquiry may be our best option. To their surprise, the humans responded immediately to their hail. The view screen displayed a human female, her expression neutral, but alert. Unidentified vessel. You have entered restricted space. State your purpose. Zeolith stepped forward. I am Senior Sographer Zeethvar of the Galactic Mapping Authority. We are conducting a standard astrographic survey. The human's expression didn't change. The GMA is aware that Earth territorial space is exempt from standard mapping protocols under Galactic Council Agreement 47B. We seek to understand why. Zeolith replied honestly. 17 GMA vessels have been lost or compromised near your territory. The spatial anomalies we've detected may pose risks to navigation throughout this sector. Something flickered in the human's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. Transmit your vessel specifications and crew manifest. You will hold position while we evaluate your request. After the transmission ended, Phalia turned to Zeeth. She wasn't surprised. They expected someone would eventually investigate. Hours later, they received coordinates for a meeting at a small human outpost. Against Morrow's security concerns, Zeolith agreed. They needed answers. The human station was utilitarian, with none of the architectural flourishes common to most species installations. They were met by 3 humans, the woman from the communication, and 2 others, who remained silent. I am Commander Sarah Chen, Earth Containment Division. She introduced herself. Your presence here is problematic, but perhaps inevitable. Containment Division Zeeth questioned. What are you containing, Commander? Chen studied them carefully before responding. How much do you know about multiversal theory, Carter? The question caught Zeethlith off guard. It's theoretical physics, multiple universe planes potentially existing parallel to our own. Not theoretical, Chen corrected. Empirical. 300 years ago, humanity discovered that the boundaries between universes are not uniformly stable. In some regions, they're dangerously thin. You're suggesting interdimensional breaches? Krev asked, his scientific mind immediately grasping the implications. Chen nodded. In this spiral arm, the membrane between our universe and others has been compromised for millennia. When humanity first developed faster-than-light travel, we discovered the damage. And what was coming through? Coming through? Lar echoed, her feathers flattening in alarm. Reality is subjective, Cartographer Chen said gravely. What exists in neighboring universes doesn't necessarily conform to our physics, our biology, or our comprehension. The entities that attempt to cross over. She paused. They're incompatible with our existence. Their mere presence degrades local space-time. You're containing interdimensional entities. Zeolith realized the pieces falling into place. That's why you won't permit mapping. You're hiding breaches. We're protecting the galaxy, Chen corrected. Your mapping vessels disappeared or returned damage because they encountered thin spots or partial manifestations. Your sensors aren't designed to process such phenomena safely. Why keep this secret? Thaya asked. The Galactic Council could provide resources, assistance. Panic, Chen interrupted. Mass hysteria, religious upheaval, and frankly, most species lack the psychological framework to process the reality of what exists beyond the boundary. Humans have an advantage. Our cultural development included millennia of mythology about eldritch horrors and cosmic abominations. We were psychologically primed to accept the incomprehensible. As if on cue, alarms blared throughout the station. Chen's communication device activated. Commander, thin spot forming in Sector 14. Class 3 breach imminent. Chen's expression hardened. You wanted answers, Cartographer. Now you'll see them firsthand. The revelation. The human transport vessel moved with surprising speed. Chen and her team, working with practiced efficiency as they guided the stellar inquiry crew toward what they called a containment event. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans donned specialized gear, not traditional spacesuits, but something far more complex with glittering circuitry woven throughout the material. Reality stabilization gear, Chen explained as she sealed her helmet. It protects us from cognitive distortion and temporal displacement. Through the transport's viewports, Zeal observed dozens of human vessels converging on the same coordinates. The spatial distortions were visible even to the naked eye. Now, light bending unnaturally, stars seeming to smear across the darkness. What exactly happens during a breach? Krev asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his growing unease. Chen's voice came through their communication system. The membrane between universes tears. Something tries to come through, something that doesn't belong in our reality. Our job is to reinforce the boundary and push it back before it fully manifests. You make it sound routine, Morrow observed. For us, it is. One of Chen's colleagues replied. Earth containment handles approximately 700 incursions annually, ranging from minor seepages to potential extinction-level events. The transport slowed as they approached the breach site. What Zealith saw defied comprehension, a writhing distortion in space, roughly 5 kilometers across. It wasn't simply a visual anomaly. It seemed to extend beyond normal perception, as if parts of it existed in dimensions he couldn't quite process. Colors that had no names twisted through the void, and geometries that shouldn't be possible bent the surrounding starfield. By the ancient stars, Lennar whispered, her scientific detachment crumbling. What is that? We don't name them, Chen said quietly. Names give things definition. Boundaries. These entities resist definition by their nature. The human vessels formed a precise formation around the distortion, deploying what Chen called reality and course. Massive devices that somehow reinforced the local laws of physics. Engineers in specialized craft moved closer, manipulating energy fields that connected the anchors into a containment system. The breach is stabilizing, announced one of the human technicians. Dimensional pressure dropping. Zeeth watched in awe as the distortion slowly shrank, the impossible colors and geometries fading as the human technology forced our reality's rules upon the intruding otherness. For a brief moment he thought he glimpsed something within the anomaly, a vast form composed of angles that couldn't exist, surfaces that seemed both solid and permeable, appendages that moved through multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then it was gone. The breach sealed. The human teams began recovering their equipment with the efficiency of long practice. 700 of these annually, Faya repeated, stunned. How long has humanity been doing this? Since before we joined the galactic community, Chen answered. When we first developed FTL technology, we discovered the breaches were already occurring. Our first colonies encountered them by accident, with catastrophic results. She directed them to a secure viewing room aboard her command vessel, where she accessed historical records. Zeeth and his crew watched in horror as footage showed early human settlements being consumed by spatial anomalies, buildings twisting into impossible configurations, colonists transformed in ways that violated biology, physics, and sanity. We lost 8 colonies before we understood what was happening, Chen explained. 17 million people. The survivors, many chose voluntary euthanasia rather than live with what they'd experienced and witnessed. But you developed countermeasures, Kreb observed. Chen nodded. Necessity drove innovation. We learned to detect thin spots before they breached. We developed technology to reinforce reality itself, and we created buffer zones, abandoned territories, where we can contain incursions without risking populated worlds. The entire restricted zone, Zeeth began, is one massive containment system, Chen confirmed. The breaches aren't random. They concentrate in this spiral arm. We don't know why. Perhaps some ancient cataclysm damaged the universal membrane here. Perhaps it's simply a natural weak point in the multiverse. And you've kept this secret from the galaxy, Morrow said, his tone somewhere between accusation and awe. We tried to explain early on. Chen's expression darkened. The Galactic Council representatives who witnessed a breach suffered severe psychological trauma. 3 species declared holy wars against us, believing we were causing the incursions. 2 others attempted to weaponize the breaches. She sighed. Eventually, we reached a compromise. The highest levels of the Council acknowledged our containment mission and granted us autonomous authority over this region. In exchange, we maintain the barriers that protect every sentient being in this galaxy from horrors they cannot comprehend. The mapping ships, Lar suddenly understood. They weren't just keeping secrets. They were protecting us. Your instruments would have detected the anomalies but lacked the filters to process them safely, Chen confirmed. At best, you'd have corrupted data. At worst, the crews would have been exposed to direct contact with these entities. Zeeth completed the thought, a chill running through him. In the days that followed, Chen's team provided a carefully curated education on humanity's containment protocols. They'd visited monitoring stations, observed smaller incursions being managed, and toured what the humans called anchor facilities, massive structures that continuously reinforce the fabric of reality throughout human space. The scope of the operation was staggering. Nearly 60% of humanity's resources were dedicated to containment. Trillions of humans served in the containment division. Entire planets existed solely to produce the specialized technology required. Your species has sacrificed much, Philly observed during their final meeting with Commander Chen. We consider it our duty, Chen replied simply. We were in the right place at the right time to discover the breaches before they became unmanageable. Had we not been here, she didn't need to complete the thought. The evidence suggested that without human intervention, the breaches would have expanded exponentially, eventually consuming the entire galaxy. As they prepared to depart, Zeeth faced a difficult question. What will you do with us, Commander? We've seen everything. The secret you've kept for centuries. Chen smiled slightly. That's up to you, cartographer. You came seeking truth, and we've shown it to you. Now you must decide what to do with that knowledge. The crew of the Stellar Inquiry debated for hours after leaving human space. The truth was simultaneously terrifying and awe-inspiring. Humanity, a species considered relatively new to the galactic community, had been quietly bearing an unimaginable burden, protecting existence itself from incomprehensible horrors. When they finally returned to Galactic Mapping Authority headquarters, Director Oren was waiting, his ancient features betraying no surprise at their unauthorized mission. You knew, Zealith accused. The Council knew a select few, Oren admitted. Those with the need to know, and the capacity to understand without breaking. The humans bear their burden with remarkable fortitude. Cartographer, could you ask the rest of the galaxy to share the psychological weight of that knowledge? Zeeth considered everything he'd witnessed. The breaches that defied comprehension, the entities that shouldn't exist, the massive containment infrastructure humanity maintained at tremendous cost to themselves. No, he finally conceded. But I propose a compromise. 1 month later, the official galactic maps were updated. Human territorial space remained restricted, but with a new designation: Protected Zone Spatial Anomaly, Containment Region, Navigation Hazard, Human Oversight Authority. No details were provided about the specific nature of the anomalies. No mention was made of breaches between universes or entities from beyond reality. But the designation acknowledged humanity's role and the legitimate danger to vessels that might enter unprepared. As Zeth studied the updated map, Leonard joined him. Do you think it's enough? It's truth without terror, Zeeth replied. Acknowledgement without exposure. The galaxy now knows there's danger there, and that humans are containing it. And perhaps someday, Lar suggested, when more species are ready to understand, the full truth can be shared. Zealith nodded thoughtfully. Until then, we honor humanity's sacrifice by respecting their boundaries, both territorial and formational. In the vastness of space, along the edges of human territory, reality anchors continued their eternal vigil, maintained by a species that had taken upon themselves a burden they never sought, but unflinchingly accepted, preserving the universe as we know it, from horrors we cannot comprehend. And that, perhaps, was the most human thing of